The Flying Earthman, written by Levant Noir. The last human we ever saw in the squadron perished over 200 orbits ago. They keep to themselves now. Nanite viruses seeded around their planets to keep people out. "You're a liar, Musfrunk," the accusation rang out from the bar. A heavy fish-like alien by the name of Riku slurped over on their four fun-like motor appendages. "Listen closer, I'll tell you the story again." My small audience grew, and another glass of toxin was pushed into my manipulator, so I sipped and started again. "So there I was, coming out of a jump space 10 segments off track, my navigator's brain dripping out of her eyes, right from the miscalculation feedback in the jump jack, and we're all lucky to be alive. We're sitting here in the beat-ass hauler, 50 thou livestock in the pressurized cargo hull, adrift with our engines rebooting. The one tech we have working the jobs of 15, and no navvy. It's time like these I wish I hadn't stopped eating pixies. The dim space bar was filled with flog proles, jetheads, techs, navvies, and one or two proper naval brass. A good audience, and no grounders who would ask stupid questions. I wore my scrambled eggs proudly, civilian as they may be, for I had a hull to my name, and that's worth something. We were getting mighty cold, taking measurements from the stars with our systems offline and attempting to reboot the main reactor from ice. All told, we were well adrift in a dense dust cloud, scraping the paint off the hull and producing a nasty spark show. I guess that's how they found us. I was deep in the engine spaces when I heard the impacts, a soft shuddering through the hull as if we had been bumped slightly. Then the alarms went off. Our main control circuits just gone completely offline, and when we got there, the compartment was open to the void, a ragged hole on one side and out the other. The muttering and cursing started, and I went quiet to control the crowd. Seeing as I was waiting, they all settled down and let me continue. "Look for yourself. My ship is scarred and cut up, plasma burns and rail holes. Only the pirates of Gamma Prime use that configuration, and we know they have bases only 2 or 3 jumps away from here." I threw the viewfinders in the bridge onto the optical, and what do I have? 3 raider corvettes hammering us with plasma, our shields about to go down, and boarders coming for our cargo and women. I'll tell you now, I'm not proud, but I thought about making it easy when I pulled out the key to the weapons locker. It wasn't going to be a fight. Old Alba doesn't even have any mounts. "But you're here. By the 7 suns, 7 damned star runners, how'd you get away? Did you cut them a deal?" The crowd surged as the tense anger at the prospect of how Musfrunk might have dealt with the pirates went through them. "Easy," I placated the crowd, lifting my manipulators. The shields went down and the boarders were on their way when another ship exited jump space at full burn. Their shields were white, overloaded and glowing, leaving a trail of plasma burn as their ship shot through the corvette group. She was a sight, a meteor of light in deep space. The thrusts spitting strange blue. We had no strong sight of the ship. The shields were too hot, but she had not opened fire on the raiders. With the corvette in chase, plasma and rails hurled in true anger at the interloper. Our interruption was to be just another folly, some captain's suicide. The quiet tension drew out over the assembled crowd, as only the sounds of biology interrupted my storytelling. By then the raiders, with their meteor detrites, hammering it with gas and iron, started taking fire back. Large, violent wounds, cut and drilled impacts of exploding, vaporized hull scarred their way across the raiders. Laser weapons. Not a single grounder was in the bar. Everyone understood the difficulty of engineering such precise weapons, able to bypass shields, and how they were exclusive to the Terran Navy. In the dust we saw the ultraviolet when a mote passed through the beam's path. The heroic human ship fighting the 3 raiders. We knew it couldn't last. 3 raiders versus 1 naval ship? Never. The hits that the humans must have taken, and how their shields were at full glow before the fight. I don't think even their biology would have held on to life. I slowed to take a breath, and hurried to deliver more story to the crowd that awaited me like an audience of a masterpiece of theater. And yet, she kept fighting and firing. First one, then the second raider took core hits as their reactors were breached and erupted in light, and violated hyperplasma. The third raider tried to run. The thrusters were hit by the humans' lasers, and threw the engines to the core. It too fell. We on the armor cheered, for we were gunners, dead people to a body, and this human ship, shields white, thrusters strange blue, and with laser weapons saved us. We were still adrift, and hailed the ship, but gained no reply. Our saviors were silent ones, we guessed, but then their shields flickered and died. Able to see the hull of our saviors, we were all gripped with a cold horror. The hull was scorched and rent, with only a lick of paint near the nose proclaiming the flying Earthman, with art of a human in a void suit under it. We could see stars through the armor plate. Sections were on fire and metal was boiling off. The ship was nigh on unstructural, and I couldn't have bothered to tow it to a scrap dealer. Yet the turrets in the back and the belly tracked fast and accurate, and the thrusters, cut and smashed as the rest of the ship glowed a strange blue. We tried to hail her again, but the ship just glowed hotter and hotter. Then the image on our sensors faded out. Not a jump sig we had seen before. Not a jack amongst us had seen the likes of our spacefaring days. I've old hands like Gunga, who has met the angels in the core, and this put him in his bunk for 5 days, crying like a larvae. Our hands didn't stop shaking. I held up my manipulator, and even now there was a tremor that no jethead would have accepted. Good thing that I was a civvy. Now we sat there, husks of our raiders floating dead, but useful for parts and raw metal. There was enough left between the 4 ships to get Alba back home, or at least to whatever I called this port. The joke failed on the somber yet utterly addicted group listening, drinks empty and ears hook. I don't know what to tell you, Rukai. I've got 8 souls known to the people where who will tell the same story. I leaned back, smiling, for nobody could call me a liar. I had accumulated tokens and drinks from my telling, and with the story over, the crowd dispersed. Riku remained and waved 2 of my crew off my table. I motioned they should take the tokens back to the ship, and soon it was Riku and I at the table. No, I'm not calling you a liar, but I've got my own story to tell. Riku leant in to share it. I'm not one for oratory such as you, but some 200 and a bit orbits ago, I served on a Terran naval ship. I'm washed up jethead now, but then I was an attaché, military intelligence. The ship I was on was one of the first and most powerful human ships of the day. We were traveling through Delta Prime when we jumped up by pirates, much the same as you. Wasn't to be. Fleet of 10 of them wanted to capture or kill the humans, and lasers firing, shields humming under train, we abandoned ship. That is, those of us that weren't human. They're crazy, saying they had a duty. Whatever. Those of us that survived fell in pods down to the planet that we were above. But the fall was long, and we got a good view. Our ship was lit with fire, hull getting slagged, and eventually it faded. Must have been shot to pure vapor. That's a nice story, Riku, but what's it got to do with me? Humans are crazy. Musfrog, those were the last humans I or anyone else saw in this entire quadrant. They were the crew of the flying Earthman. Had a spaceman painted on the nose. Riku stood up and left me alone with the drinks and the images. I don't think these shakes are going to go away. End of story. Story number 2. Friendly advice written by Anti-Money Squandering. I appreciate it, guys, but it's hopeless. I'm hopeless. The man sighed heavily, his head slumped down in his arms. He jerked up when a large glass was thudded down in front of him, accompanied by a comforting claw on his shoulder. He looked up at the furred face that grinned down at him. You are not hopeless, Spurless, but a bit pathetic by Puttun's standards, but not hopeless. The man smiled back weakly, picking up the glass and swiftly draining half its contents. The vignette moved back quickly as the human began to cough uncontrollably. The Brillian next to him, hammering a fist on his back while staring at Poe's still grinning face. What did you give him? He sounds like he's dying. The Bennett shrugged, settling back into his seat and drinking from an identical glass. At least he's not moaning now, is he, Varley? An improvement, no? Barley shook her head and hissed softly, continuing to rub the human's back as he got his coughing under control. She raised herself up slightly on her serpentine lower half to peer into the glass. As she settled back down, the human picked up the glass himself, sniffing the contents before taking a much more hesitant sniff and sip. "Strong," he murmured, staring down into the murky depths of it. "Oh, get Powen out of here. John's gone miserable again," the Vanette growled, finishing off his own drink and gesturing to a passing waitress for more. John muttered something angrily and downed the remainder of the brownish liquid, coughing only once and wiping his mouth on his sleeve. Powen growled approvingly. "Maybe getting intoxicated is not the best plan of action," a Spintock sitting at the opposite side of the table ventured, his own small paws wrapped around a slightly steaming cup. He bent forward, and his long, dark tongue flickered out to lap at the hot liquid. Before Powen could snarl his response, the waitress appeared, placing 2 more glasses in front of him and John. They both picked them up, and John clinked his gently against Powen's, who blinked at him, nonplussed. "It's what humans do, Amber," John said, taking another large gulp. "We drink to get the courage to approach the woman, then we drink to forget." Amber clattered his spines in annoyance. "You haven't even spoken to the female yet, John. You are preemptively depressed," he snorted, and his long tongue flicked back to sip more of his beverage. "Besides, that's a terrible way to attract a mate." "Oh, and you would know about how to attract females, little one," Powen laughed, nudging John aggressively. He smiled wider as the small Spintock bristled, and John rubbed his ribs in pain. Varley slithered off to the bar with a muttered wish to have never volunteered to leave a whole world. "Of course I do, you spineless pipnip." He turned from the amused Vanette to address John. "It's all in the preparation. You need to put the dime in so that she finds you attractive." John leaned forward as Powen grew bored and left to find Varley. Yeah, so clean up, presentable, nice clothes, freshly shaved. I get it." Amber rattled his spines, and his eye stalk shrunk in. His Spintock, sign of exasperation. "No, you stupid mammal. Who cares about clothes? No, smell! Smell!" John frowned, unconsciously sniffing himself and grimacing slightly. "Like, cologne?" "What? What's that? No, attracting a female is a delicate process. You need to find out what her aroma attractions are. If they're within your ability, that's half the battle. She's almost yours. Then you prepare for the olfactory dance of seduction." John gazed blearily at him for a few moments, opening and closing his mouth a couple times. Eventually, he opted for filling it with more drink, half watching over the room as the diminutive alien carried on, eye stalks twitching as he spoke. "Yes, you let off that sweet smell, carefully prepared by your glands, and she's almost yours. I tell you, to be a youngling again and see the look of the fertile Spintock when it hits her snout." "What are you talking about, you stinking little thing?" Powen said, reappearing at John's shoulder with a tray full of small glasses grasped in his claws. "That's not how you attract females. Powen will tell you how to get a mate." He sat down heavily and set the tray on the center of the table, ignoring when one fell over and spilled the light blue liquid within. "First, though, sprints." "We call them shots," John said, taking one offered by Powen and staring at the glass. "They're not normally this, luminous, though." "Shots, not a bad name," Powen said, opening his mouth wide and pouring one of the shots down its toothy maw. "They'll put air on your ears." John continued to stare at his as Varley returned, holding a slim glass filled with a light pink liquid that matched the delicate hand wrapped around it. "I don't think I want her ears," he muttered before downing the shot. Varley frowned before shaking her head and dipping her long tongue into her drink. "What's your problem?" Powen shouted, slamming another shot down in front of John and finishing 2 more himself. "Looks at you, bare skin with patches of fur. Pick a side, John. Look at Powen, furred all over. Beautiful. Look at Varley, smooth all over. Beautiful. What are you, John? Mostly furless, but with some on the top and a weird patches on your chest." John and Varley glanced at each other briefly, before responding at the same time to Powen. "Don't try your mating tactics on me, Warmblood. The feeling is not mutual." "When have you seen my chest, Po?" "And another thing, where are your claws, your fangs? How can a female mate with someone who cannot even hunt?" I don't think that this is relevant to me, Poe. Poe is strong. Poe has sharp claws, sharp fangs, and the eye of a hunter. The females, I can see that. Smell it. At the mention of smell, Amber's eye stalks briefly looked over before he decided against it and returned to his herbal drink. You show yourself as a warrior, and the females, they come to you. John looked on as Poe drank more of the shots, his speech becoming more of a low grumble until his translator stopped bothering. John drank one himself, then turned to face Varley. Well, what, Warmblood? John looked around the table, where Poe was now snoring sonorously, and Amber was pointedly sipping his drink and ignoring the others. John hiccuped and turned back, tapping his nose. Everyone else is giving me tips, so come on, you're a lady. Varley's long tongue flickered out a few times as she considered the softly swaying human. I don't think many of our species share many mating habits, John. She drank some more before gently setting her glance down, her vibrant green eyes meeting John's as she bared her fangs. Or maybe we do. Tell me, Warmblood, how much biting is involved in a human mating? Biting? John replied, nervously downing the last of the blue shots. I mean, sometimes, back at the academy, I got a little wild. Yes, Varley hissed, her tail thudding softly into the floor. It is a battle, a struggle. Love and war, they are the same, and your fangs, they sink into your mate. John blinked a few times, his eyes trying to focus on her exposed fangs before getting shakily to his feet, swaying as he looked down at the table. And you have to ensure that you have fertilized the eggs. Okay, great advice, thank you guys, John blurted out, nervously pushing his hair from his eyes. After a moment, he steadied slightly on his feet, and a determined look entered his eyes. He took his cap from his pocket and wedged it onto his head, smoothing creases from his shirt. You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to go find her. Varley and Amber looked at each other and chuckled softly, while a half-awake Poe raised a single clenched paw in approval from his position face down on the table. And what advice are you taking, John? All of it. He turned and stormed out of the bar, narrowly avoiding barreling into Narrated, who hissed at him angrily. He doffed his cap to the irate lizard and left, leaving his friends to stare after him. This is going to end terribly, you realize? Obviously. Another drink? End of story. I would like to thank our T5 members and patrons, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Vidmori, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.